Welcome y bienvenidos to the Cultural Capacity Podcast, an Educator Aid Incorporated sponsored learning tool. I'm your host and guide, Justine Gonzalez, and here on the Cultural Capacity Podcast, we are committed to exploring and supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Be sure that you check out each of the show's episode notes, where every time we're sharing free learning resources and tools, as well as text recommendations, workshops, trainings, and also featured guests in our monthly extended episodes where we feature thought leaders, both existing and emerging, across these realms of topics that we explore together. The design of our episodes like this one you're about to hear is where we typically spend around 15 minutes diving deep with one specific question. This is intentional by design, so be sure that you tune in throughout the whole episode. Tap into the show notes to explore and examine both the free and paid resources for you and your teams, the organizations you serve in. And be sure to hit follow, subscribe, or share when you find value and feel led to share with others. I'm so glad that I'm here with you. I'm so glad, most of all, that you showed up for yourself today. Let's dive in together and let's continue to live out our lives in a compassionately curious way that brings out the best in not only ourselves, but in those we interact with every day. Welcome y bienvenidos to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I am your hostess and teacher, Justine Gonzalez, and I'm so glad that you're here. Most of all, that you've shown up for yourself today. And for whatever reason you've been led to listen to this particular episode, I hope that you find it enlightening in some way for yourself. We are very much about being transparent and also being guinea pigs here at the Cultural Capacity Podcast. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I love sharing about my own learning journey. It's the most important thing that each of us can master is ourselves. We cannot control other people, so it becomes very vital that we understand the art of how we communicate. What is our personal culture and our existing cultural contexts? What are the things that I need to know as a leader? So if you're in a leadership role and you're listening to this podcast, these are some of the things and so much more that we dive into here together. So especially if this is one of your first times listening, I just want to give you a warm welcome and a thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know myself and my team have so many more new resources coming for you. But in the meantime, be sure that you check out always the show notes, regardless of the format of the episode. Always check the show notes where we offer you aligned resources, not only from our company, but also from others. We are very much into promoting if something is a great practice and it helps you get more compassionately curious about your own journey and the lives of others and those you connect with regularly. We want you to learn from it. So please know that and know that that's why we're here. So I want to also remind you, and especially if you're new, most of our episodes are going to be this format. They're going to be 15 minutes or less and center around one deep question where we explore it together. And I might share an anecdote or an example or maybe a strategy or a protocol that's linked. Whatever the case may be, our episodes are typically 15 minutes or less. Once a month, we release, and this is always the first episode of each month, we release a Featured Voices extended episode where we get to sit down at the table, the Cultural Capacity virtual table, and have a conversation with thought leaders across various industries. And we get to learn about their cultural origin story and all of the incredible things that they're bringing into the world. So you'll want to make sure that you subscribe on your preferred platform. I will also note that there's a link in the show notes to our YouTube channel where you can view the video version of this episode just without this front end. But if you prefer video format, I do encourage you to subscribe over there. in addition to your favorite podcast platform. So do not hesitate to reach out to us via voice memo and or continue to provide us feedback. We are here to support all of our learning journeys, including my own, including my teammates at educatoraid.com. We are here to really get compassionately curious together. So I'm glad you showed up, and I want to kick off this episode with a little context building because the audio that we're going to shift into, you will hear me. This was a reflection I had after attending an event. And I was considering, how we bring ourselves into a space and how we carry ourselves into a room and how that energy that we bring to the table, it really informs a lot of our intentions. And we can have the best of intentions, but if I show up with energy that's not in alignment with those good intentions, I'm using air quotes, or those intentions that we intended to be positive, then it's something worth noticing. So often, we don't consider that maybe we're tired, or maybe I'm not going to an event or a meetup or a meeting with the best headspace. And it's not always an option for us to bow out. However, there are definitely things we can consider and quick practices that can help us kind of clear our energy, so to speak, and be more aware of what it is that we're bringing into a space and we're bringing into a room, and how that's actually the underlying driving factor of our intentions. So once again, if you haven't, go back into some previous episodes. I do know we definitely have an episode on the energetics of power, and that is a fascinating just thing to think about. And then we also have this one. So if you're specifically looking for understanding energetics a little bit better, we do have a couple episodes on the topic, including this one. And I hope you enjoy the reflection. It's, again, it was just about four to 5 minutes, and it was following an event that I attended and just a reflection that I had. So you'll find that often myself and or the other hosts here, we are using our lives as examples, and in hopes that you get an opportunity to reflect on your own life. This is never to tell you a definitive answer to the question that the title of an episode is. It's never to, now we might help you to find some common language and some common strategies. However, the very format is for you to be able to react and respond with the information you hear and reflect and introspect on your own current practices and your ways of being and living. How are you showing up in the world? So if we can help you do that, then we are very, very happy about that. So I want to thank you all again. I want to thank all of our subscribers that continue to grow. We are now in over 35 countries globally. I cannot thank you all enough. And let's dive into this episode on can we really control the outcomes? Can we really control success? And I'm playing around with this question of the episode title. How do I control success? How do I predict success? This concept of this idea of being able to inform it. I don't ever believe you can control it. This is my own personal reflection. You might think differently, you might disagree. That's okay. But I don't know that it's about controlling it. But in this episode, I do want you to listen to the following reflection that we're about to segue into for this episode. Can we ensure that we're better setting ourselves and those we interact with up for better intentions of success? That's what I would challenge us with, because it does become a little tricky to go, I can guarantee a successful outcome. Well, there's one argument. Yes, I can always guarantee a successful outcome. How? I have chosen that my mindset is going to be positive no matter what. So in theory, energetically, if I decide that no matter, right, when I go to an event or a meeting, whatever that energy is, and I say, no matter what, I'm going to learn from this opportunity. It doesn't matter if I decide I'm not really vibing with any person there, or maybe the content of the meeting isn't great, like whatever the thing is, that we're planning for that interaction and that engagement, I can control my mindset and how I go into it. I can't really control anything else, but I can absolutely become more aware and control my mindset. So when I talk about controlling success or guaranteeing a successful interaction or outcome, similar to the title of this episode, that is what I'm talking about. So it's something to consider because there's plenty of schools of thought, but in theory, we often have already told ourselves something won't work, or this is going to be stupid, or I won't find anybody to connect with at this event or this meeting, or so-and-so is going to say this in the staff meeting again. Whatever that thing is, you've made that decision of how things are going to go and what the outcome is going to be when you already decided it in your head. And so it's really hard to bounce back from that if you've already determined this is a waste of my time. So as you listen to my reflection and as you pick it apart and think about your own self, think about how much power you actually have in a lot of situations. We sometimes tell ourselves we are powerless in many, many situations and scenarios where we, in fact, just don't know how to actually enact the power that we hold. Okay. Enjoy this reflection. And until next time, let's get compassionately curious together.
Hey, you all. Just checking in. Just went to my first National Speakers Association event as a member. And I want to remind each of you, when you are going someplace new, especially if it is like a mixer or networking, etc., remember that all of the opportunities present and available to you are contingent upon what you believe is possible and the intention that you enter the room with. So no matter if you're going to a new person's house, maybe they're a newer friend that you've met, or you're going to some event where you are connecting or it's framed as networking, be yourself, but most important is the energetic intention that you put behind why you're going into the room and your purpose there as not only a learner, but an observer. And I don't just mean of other people, but also of yourself. I am often going into rooms and spaces where I might not know everybody there, similar to you who may be watching this right now. But just remember, there's power in the energy of your intention. And so when we are intentional about who we are, how we believe, how we show up in any space that we go to, that is going to be blessed. And I personally believe God is going to bless that intention. So when you go into a space, if we decide to go in and we go, well, I didn't really take time to get ready, I didn't do my hair, or I didn't put thought into my outfit, or I'm not feeling the best about myself, or I don't know how I'm going to introduce myself, or maybe I'm dragging my feet because I'm coming from someplace else and I feel like, oh, I'm just doing this, or I haven't connected with anybody in the ways I desired. All those are narratives that you've told yourself. They might not even be true. Now, it's possible you can go to events and say, this doesn't really align with what I'm looking for. This doesn't resonate with me personally. However, I have found that anything I've ever gone to, whether it's a conference, a religious service, a new friend's house, just like I brought up these examples, the outcome has always depended upon the energy of the intention that I held when I walked into the space, from the time I got ready at my home until I arrived at that event. And don't force yourself. If you're going to someplace new and maybe you just don't feel up to that energy, or you haven't done your homework on the event, or you're just not feeling like you, or maybe you're tired, or maybe you're getting a cold or something, listen to yourself. Remember that what is for you, and go with it. So remember the energy of your intentions when you go someplace, any place. That is completely up to you. And I wish you the best as you're going out and meeting new people or connecting with new people.
Thank you so much for showing up for yourself, first and foremost, and for sitting down to have a conversation with us in this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I'm your host, Justine Gonzalez, and I encourage you to first and foremost check out our website, educatoraid.com, as well as any of the linked resources in the resource section of our show notes. And finally, be sure you hit subscribe on your preferred platform. For podcast preference, we stream on Audible, Amazon Prime, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review when you're over there on those platforms. And then you can also click to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is also in the resource section of our show notes. The reason why you would want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, number one, it is where we stream and premiere all of our featured voices interviews, which also include video, especially if you want to see, hear, interact with, and feel like you are sitting down a part of the conversation. I would always recommend that modality. However, it's also the place where we're going to continuously be releasing free high-level learning workshops for you and your team. So you're going to want to hit subscribe to the Educator Aid Incorporated official YouTube channel, as well as check out all of the resources that we put in the resource section of the show notes. Again, thank you for tuning into this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. Let's continue to get compassionately curious together.